Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where today's show, Authentic Achievements, we're going to be talking about loyalty, excellence, and inspiration, the cornerstones of authentic achievement. And it's absolutely my delight that I'll be joined by John Lanier, who excels at sharing profit rainmaking super trends, which enables companies to go up against Goliaths and win. He's a popular speaker with his highly effective program, Profit Rainmaking, the 7 Universal Truths to Loyal Customers, Exceptional Operations and Inspired Teams. John is the CEO and founder of Middle Market Methods, a powerful consulting firm founded in 2006, working to dramatically reduce execution risk and double companies between $25 to $250 million in sales. He's known as a resultant, as his clients have coined, and his second book, Profit Rainmaking, is due out next year. John, welcome.
My distinct pleasure. It's a delight to visit.
Oh, it's a delight to have you here. And there's so many places that we could get started. But could you start by bringing to life a little bit more about those 7 universal truths, please?
Sure. As we journey through life, we adopt our aphorisms for how we do what we do. And we have to distill it to something that resonates with our target market. And that's the short version of it. It's if we have principles that guide us, we're less likely to make egregious mistakes along our journey.
I love that. I mean, we are all quite purpose and principle driven, aren't we? So understanding what they are, knowing what they are, is so vital, isn't it, to ensure that we are aligned authentically with what we're trying to achieve, and that we do so in a way that that feels right for us and for the people that we serve. Would that be fair? Indeed.
Do you wish for me to elaborate on that? Well, I hope for everyone listening that they find that thing which resonates with them passionately. And if they do, they will enjoy a life where they don't look at their challenges as work. They look at it as fun. I'm there. I am at that point where I know what I was meant to do. I'm enjoying it immensely. I've been doing it for 25 years now. And I would say I haven't worked a day in that period, but I've invested a lot of hours having a lot of fun helping people harness their latent potential. And it all begins with who we want to serve. That's a target market. And what is our unique value proposition for connecting with them so that they, and this is one of the things that would map to the 7 truths, is customers don't want to be sold, but they do want to buy. It is our obligation to figure out what that is so we can help. And then both of us win.
I love that. That's so true. My dad used to say exactly the same thing. He's like, you can't, and I ran sales teams for years, and he used to say, you don't ask enough questions to be able to pitch what you're selling. Ask enough questions so the customer knows what they want to buy. Because nobody likes, as you say, nobody likes to be sold to. We feel it makes us feel cheated, doesn't it? It makes us feel like actually something happened, but we all live the buying experience. We all live that feeling that we were the one in control. We were the one that was in the driving seat. And so it's so important, as you say, to understand kind of who it is you're serving and what it is they either want or need. And I remember sharing once at a conference, much to my boss's discussed at the time, as I stood up in front of everybody and said, the first thing you need to know is nobody actually wants our product. And they all looked a bit horrified, but they do need it. So, and the reason I shared that is you can't create a want in somebody who's got a need, and you can't create a need in someone who's got a want, because they're different emotional plays, aren't they? Is that something you've found in organizations? And how can people work out if what they're doing is wants or needs based?
Well, let me answer that by revisiting what you shared between need and want. All consumers, be they people or businesses, all consumers have a budget from which they make their purchases, and the needs part gets priority for obvious reasons. If your household is groceries and the power bill, let's say. And in business, it's raw materials. And then there's the want. I'd rather be in the category of need than want, because want is purchased with discretionary excess. Smart people would do that to avoid manufacturing a financial crisis. So one of your best aspirations would be mapping what you offer as a vendor to a customer need. And there, if I may go a little bit further, there are some techniques for getting there a lot faster. And, I recycle a lot of good material, and including wise people who said things that stuck. And one of it's nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So where do you start? And it's since your customers, in my vernacular, they have to be the star of the show. How do you prove it? I'd like to learn your business. I want to know how I can help. What keeps you up at night? What happens if you encounter rapid growth? What are your bottlenecks? When you ask those types of questions Socratically, you're communicating that I want to figure out if I can do anything to help. Because quite frankly, if I can't do anything to help, I'm wasting their time beyond that, and I just do more damage than good. So how do we get there quickly to get them comfortable with our possible role as a trusted advisor? And that's more than being a vendor. That's someone having an intimate type of connection with you, sufficient that they will share those things that they haven't quite figured out yet, or it's not working well. And it may not be something that we sell or offer, but the relationships are often built on what you bring to the table from your network that does solve their problem. And then you earn trust. And I wager that trusted advisor is more important than vendor status per se, because you are there to serve, and that's give as opposed to take. And I'd say giving is mapping to a need, and taking is trying to sell them something. And to your earlier comments, you have a much better dynamic if they perceive you in the need category than a want category.
I love that. It's so true, isn't it? It's like if we seek first to understand, because at our core, everybody wants to be listened to, understood, and respected. And it doesn't mean to say we can't disagree, but we don't disrespect. And I think too often we don't take the time to build that relationship, to really understand what's going on in the world for that person, to be able to see whether or not there is something we can do to help, even as you say, if that is somebody in your connections that can help, not necessarily you directly. And I think when we start to come at it from that position of seeking first to understand, we build much stronger relationships, don't we? Well,
it's an exercise in civility that unfortunately COVID set back about 2 centuries. It's connecting on an interpersonal level, dusting off our EQ skills. All this is really important. And the seek first to understand is a Covey principle, and it's one of his 7, and I think it's great. But connecting at a personal level is where everything has to start, because what is any dynamic absent trust?
Yeah. I completely agree. I guess for me, when I think seek first to understand, I think person before company.
Yeah.
Because actually everybody you deal with, it was like the other day, I was like, oh, Kim, business is difficult. And I'm like, okay, tell me more, let me understand that. And he's like, well, you've got business partners, like they're people, and you've got colleagues, they're people, and he went through this whole list. Of even got to regulators, even they're people. So what you've got is lots of different people, but if you're looking at them by purely the title that they carry, you're missing an opportunity to really seek to understand what's going on for them, as well as what's going on in their work, because we don't leave ourselves at the door, do we? Our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So wherever we go, we go. So if we can understand the person and then the wider situation, that's where you start to really build that trust, isn't it?
Indeed. I'm compelled to share something I'm involved in right now. That is, I'm a coach in an entity called Capital Collective that's specifically designed to coach aspiring entrepreneurs with latent potential and on a fast growth track. And it is incredibly fulfilling. And mapping to these principles that you're teeing up, the ability to ask questions as you understand their business model, to help them think through the big 3. Where's the revenue coming from? How do I keep up with it? That's operations. Where does the talent come from to steward it? It is by crafting good questions relative to their business model and their target market, they understand better their version of super trends. What are the things within and beyond my control that are really dictating what is possible in this industry vertical? And seeing how these really devoted, passionate entrepreneurs are blossoming into dissecting what they're dealing with and coming up with their own algorithms for how they competitively prevail in what they do. It's just a great thing. It's like a parent watching your kid learn how to stand on their own on the first time. And they'll take off, as you know, as a parent, once they figure out how to keep their balance standing up, running at a fast pace isn't far behind.
Yeah.
So these are marvelous things. And this is how this comes into being to create value. And you can do well by doing good. And the well part is economic reward, but good, does it serve a need? And where do we fit in the overall economy and our industry verticals particularly, and our unique value proposition specifically? I would argue respectfully that we get there by asking the right questions to make sure what we offer is perceived by our target market as, yeah, I need that. And not only I need that, but I need it from you because you get me. That's a special moment.
Yeah. I love that. It's so true. We need to, you've got to put the work in, haven't you? And I've always thought that actually one of the greatest gifts you can have is the ability to ask really good questions. Because we've all seen that moment, haven't you, where either somebody's asked you a question and it's gone, oh my God, yeah, that's really unlocked it, or you've asked a question of somebody else and it's really unlocked the answer. And that's just priceless, isn't it? As a moment of how do we get better at asking questions that seek to understand, but that also allow us to spot our own unconscious bias. For me, one of the things that I'm really passionate about at the moment is curiosity. Like being really much more curious about myself and about others. Why do I think this? Why do you think that? What can you see I can't see? Because I think we've unfortunately over the last many decades have crafted leadership in a way that says you've got to know all the answers, which means you're not open to good questions anymore. So how do we make that move? How do we how do we start to have the courage to ask questions instead of telling people what we think the answer is?
Ooh, we if we copyright the answer to that, we'll both be rich as Croesus, because we have to deal with a lot of things. I think the Almighty's joke on humanity is our resistance to change and our perception of being impervious to forces in nature. The great writers, the great researchers, the people that I look to for my continuous process improvement, which is education in motion, point out some things that make sense but are hard to do. You get more out of your team if you demonstrate a vulnerability that it doesn't. Some people say that's weakness. No, I don't think so. That's character. And one of the things that I have found in going on 35 years of process improvement type work is that the people who know what's wrong are in the trenches at the most granular level in the workflow. They haven't been asked what they think is wrong. And oh, by the way, they also have some ideas about how it could be improved. So we talk a lot, we read a lot, we discuss a lot about change agency, change management. There is no easier thing to change than when you ask people who do the work how it could be done better and more easily. And if they co-author, I shouldn't have said co-op, poor choice of words. If they co-author any portion of the solution, because you might complement it with, well, have you thought about whether this could work? Have you thought about that could work in conjunction with this idea? Great idea. Can we make it more robust? Any fingerprints by the folks who have to live with it after the fact on the proposed and implemented solution gets automatic change agency. So nothing, Simon Sinek discussed this in his book, Start With Why. Unless people, I'm paraphrasing, unless people buy into it for their reasons, you got to question its true sustainability. Because people like me, when we support change, we go home. And it doesn't remain changed unless the people who are there doing it every day actually believe it's the right thing to do enough that they keep doing it after you're out of the picture. And in my own business model, to make sure I'm calibrated to this phenomenon, I deliberately put myself in a position where I have zero position authority. And by its nature, I have to be good at EQ and change agency to help my clients implement sustainable change. Because at the end of the day, all consultants, even if they're resultants, all consultants are just visitors.
That is so true. And I used to say before I moved into consulting, I built my career asking what I used to call the dumb girl questions. Going asking into every organization and asking everybody at the front line, can I ask you what's the dumbest thing we make you do every day? Because nobody asks them that question. And I guarantee it's a throwaway for everybody. Go and ask it next time you're in an organization, because you will find, to your point, John, all of the easy fixes of the things that actually cause the most angst. Because when we get the silly things wrong, they don't trust us with the big things. Because how do we miss that? How do we not see that was going? And so I love that whole essence is around going in and finding out what it feels like to be there. What does every day look, sound, feel like? What are the bits that you'd go, oh, don't make me do this again? And what are the bits where you're like, why did they not do that? And I would absolutely love for us to dig into that in a little bit more detail, but we are going to quickly go to a commercial break with the sponsors. So I'll give you a chance to think through that. And
sure. I already have the example.
On the way I'll see you in a couple of seconds.
All right, thanks.
In a world craving connection, one platform dared to dream bigger. USA Global TV and Radio, a beacon for global voices, authentic storytelling, and elevated listening. Led by visionary Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the journey from a spark to a global force is now captured in one inspiring book. Honored with YouTube's Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. Discover the evolution, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unstoppable spirit that created a global movement. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang. Creative director Paul Garcia. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Now an Amazon #1 new release in paperback and ebook. Broadcasting Brilliance, the evolution of USA Global TV and Radio, is inspiring readers around the world. Join the movement that's redefining global media one story at a time.
Fab. Thank you so much for my sponsors. And what an amazing journey that USA Global TV and Radio has gone on. And I'm very grateful to be one of the hosts and to have my good friend, Dr. Jacqueline, as the owner of this, the inspiration and the visionary that is creating this space for us to be able to learn together, to grow together, and to share together. And for that, I'm very grateful. And so let's bring back John and carry on understanding a little bit more about how do we build better cultures for our people to have permission to be part of the solution. So, John, thank you so much for bearing with us while we went to our commercial break. Can we now get into that whole part of, how do we have the courage to be vulnerable? Because I think, as you mentioned earlier, when people say it's weakness, actually it takes a lot of courage to show some vulnerability and to understand how to show vulnerability without losing credibility, because you don't want to come in and be like a vulnerable mess on the floor, because that's not going to help. So it's finding that line, isn't it, of how do you do it authentically, but also maintain that balance.
I love the question you posed before the break, or the point you made. You said it's hard to come out of my mouth because I have daughters, but the dumb girl questions or something like that. And I thought, I, with my clients, reserve the right to ask stupid questions. It's one of the first things I come out of my mouth with. And they look at me sort of funny. And it's what? Who would do that? And I said, how am I going to learn if I don't ask questions? And they won't all be smart, but every now and then one sticks. And that's the 80-20 function. Yeah. But here, I'll tell you a story that pulls all this together about how I learned that I'm actually a process nerd, which I wear with pride because, as we all know, nerds rule. I was drafted into this project a few years ago that was the first dynamic data warehouse in financial services. Data warehousing per se wasn't that new, but dynamic was a big deal, like feed it data and be able to use it instantaneously. And this was just a game changer type of project, and was part of a bigger initiative. And we were in the final throes and almost about to miss a deadline. And I was a SME in this thing that bridged the gap between users and coders, because they needed an interpreter both ways. And somehow somebody thought that was me. So we're trying to load 3 years of data to meet a launch date. And we were having troubles. So I just started asking dumb questions to the coders. And this was part of ETL, extract, translate, and load. And I said, well, what's the real problem here? So, well, just the quantity of data relative to this really critical calculation that we're trying to make. I said, tell me about the calculation. I said, it's a rolling 90 days. I said, okay. I said, what happens to the 91st day? He said, well, it drops off. I said, it's not retained anywhere. It's not archived. No. I said, why are we trying to load 3 years? And I was quiet. And they had that really curious look on their face, and they looked at me, and then they looked at their keyboard, and they looked at me, and they looked at their keyboard. I said, we don't have to load 3 years to do this. I said, Okay, does that give us anything? He said, yeah, we'll meet our deadline. So for testing purposes, we cut it to about 6 months. Well, difference between 6 months and 3 years of data is a big deal. And we made our deadline. So that is an example of asking a stupid question, but asking it in a way where they could be vulnerable to share and respond without feeling like they look stupid. I played stupid. And I learned a lot from that. And so a formula like that works when you're genuinely curious and you have a servant leader's heart and you're trying to help somebody solve their problem, but they have to understand what their problem is first, enough to communicate it to people like me who can ask questions to help them identify at a high level their super trends that make the rules before we get down to what we do within our industry vertical, before we get down to what we do with our business model. So there is some method to the madness, but that's how I'd respond to your question.
Oh, I love that. I think it's so true. It's creating that safe space for people to raise questions and debates themselves. And I think, what I loved about what you shared is you also demonstrated an owning of the silence. Because too often we ask a question and then we leap straight in to save the person. It's like, that's thinking time. Give them chance. Let them process. Let them think about it. Give them, hold the space for them to be able to find their response and kind of sit with it. And I'd love to know your thoughts. I very often see in organizations that people ask a question and then immediately jump straight in and don't give the person enough thinking time, because it's almost like we've got scared of the silence. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
Indeed. There's some manifestations of that are noteworthy here from a leadership perspective. If leaders do not encourage a lessons learned loop from both wins and setbacks, particularly on the setbacks, we are guaranteeing we will have to learn the lesson again at some point. That's an expensive thing. So by modeling those behaviors, and by the way, I just was reading some research on this recently, and a lot of our successes we attribute to genius when it can be blind luck, and success can be a very interesting opioid and make us addicted to our own genius when in fact we may have just been lucky that time. So if it's not, engineers have something they call gauge R&R, which means repeatable and reproducible. If you can't take a person out of the population and give them the same procedure you used to get that result, if they can't reproduce it at a statistically valid percentage, it was luck. So you can punish sometimes people who follow a good process and it just didn't yield a right answer. And you could go the opposite extreme and you could have a sample of one where you won the lottery, but you won't win the lottery again tomorrow morning by buying a ticket the same time of day at the same place. It's just sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're unlucky. There's a phenomenon that Kahneman and Tversky wrote about in Thinking Fast and Slow, which is called a regression toward the mean. You shouldn't be too harsh on people who had a boo-boo who followed the procedures, and you shouldn't get too euphoric about somebody who has a black swan that you did well on and thinking, oh, that'll happen again tomorrow. It's more in the mean area. What we're after is reducing variation. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? Play that back slowly.
It was, but there were so many great points in there, because I think often we praise some of the wrong things, and there was some research done that I can't remember who did it. I think it was either Stanford or Yale, and they identified that people that had been praised for success over time performed worse than the people who had been praised for progress. Because eventually the people that have been praised for success started to have a really small risk appetite for something they couldn't guarantee they were going to be successful at. Whereas the people that were constantly praised for the progress, for the learning, for the keep getting back up, they were the ones that went on to outperform because actually they had a much greater risk appetite for getting it wrong. because that wasn't how it wasn't how their worth was valued. And it felt like that kind of fit in with what you were saying. And I'm not trying to, get too euphoric over the success piece and beat up the people that are doing the process and learning from it, because actually, they're probably the ones that are ultimately going to make the biggest impact for us.
There's some corollaries to that, also backed by some science. Is that the behaviors should be lauded, not the person, because if you want other people to benefit by those best practices and maybe these are trade secrets. If we want the whole team to adopt this stuff, we should associate with a pool of knowledge, not a person. Another point I'd make in reaction to what you just shared is that learning organizations have a future. Organizations which eschew the possibility of your cheese moving tend to be writing their own obituaries. So how do we make sure, and this is a Darwinian thing, how do we make sure we're evolving relative to our ecosystem? We have to keep an eye on the horizon for those super trends that change the way we can do business.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think, for me, I kind of, when I guess I look at kind of praising the progress, I'll take it back to my little girl, which, I look at her and every time she succeeds in something, the bit I'm proudest of and the bit I share with her is the fact that she never gave up. She never stopped trying, even when it was hard. She kept going. And that's the same as what I praise in my teams, which is, I love is the fact that you just don't give up. You brush it off, you take the lesson, you take the learning, and you look at what can I do now that I can see a little bit more of the road, because when we make a mistake, we see as something we didn't know before. So as long as we learn from it, just like to your point, when we learn from the things that went well. So what did I do this time that I'd like to repeat, and what did I do that I'd like to alter, so that we are in that constant evolution. And for me, I'd love to know your thoughts. I think one of the most important skills that we need to embrace right now as leaders and as people is intentional curiosity. So being much more intentionally curious about what we think, what other people think, what's going on in technology, in society, in environment, so that we can continue to learn and evolve to remain relevant. Because if we don't, to your point, our relevance is impeded, and we face the one thing most of us fear, which is becoming irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I'm going to share what I practice, and I adopted it from a recommendation. I stand on the shoulders of giants to the extent I know anything that has value. I probably learned it from somebody else, but they wanted to make sure that I knew about it. And so I'm honoring them and sharing things like this. I read recently something similar on this, and they packaged it as a personal board of directors. Well, we know from business, a good board of directors is inherently curious, like a 2-year-old kind of curious. Why, until they get a plausible answer. And our personal board of directors, in my case, it's eclectic. People diametrically wired oppositely from me, and we're friends. Don't necessarily agree on much, but we have fun debating. That's intellectually stimulating. And like if you want to know just how myopic a human being can become, read Freakonomics and walk away the same way you started before you read the book. So when you have data behind certain things, like, wow, this past scientific method, and this is not what I thought was going to be the answer. Who do we have who has that type of trust between them, that they can share things? And it's about a point. It's about interpretation of data. It's about another way of looking at things, and it's not personal. The moment something becomes personal, you already lost. So how do we manifest this in a business model? I'm a big advocate on anything that's of a high risk execution, that there is an official devil's advocacy role to be empowered to ask the tough questions. And the responsibility can rotate across the executive leadership team so that nobody's always the bad person, if you will. But it's a learning exercise in how you critically think to try to come up with a question that nobody thought about that can make a big difference on risk versus reward. So my ultimate takeaway in responding to you on this is we have to deliberately want to seek things which contradict what we think the right answer is, to preclude myopia or groupthink, which are both evil in their own right. How do we make sure we made an informed decision with good information? And we just don't know unless we're curious. And nobody could possibly know everything about everything. There may be people who think and act like they do, but I steer clear of those people because they're a train wreck waiting to happen. I like curious people who, they're not paranoid, but they have a healthy curiosity. And as long as we stay curious and we're looking for answers with a scientific method whispering in our ear, we're less likely to do something insanely stupid that we just can't explain.
I love that. That's so true, because I think that is why you have your board around you, isn't it? Because then you can see things from every angle. You can see things from different perspectives. And I think one of the things that I've learned is there's always three sides. Three sides to every story. There's my truth, your truth, and the actual truth. And if we have a board, then the chances are we get to the actual truth, and therefore we can make a much more informed decision about it. And to your point, hopefully avoid doing anything terminally stupid that causes us or the organisation, or both us and the organisation, to have such angst around it. John, it's always a delight to chat to you. And I can't believe we're nearing the end of the show, and you've shared so much amazing stuff already. Our conversations always just disappeared. I always love
that's a good sign.
We have a good debate. But before we go, I'd love for you to share how people can get in touch with you and who you help.
Sure. My target market is middle market companies between $25 and $250 million in sales that are eager to double without hurting their brand. So there's a methodology that I'm branding as the Profit Rainmaking Roadmap. And you can also reach me on my website, which you have screening there, www.middlemarketmethods.com. You can reach me through there. You'll see on this a reading list. Anything that I've devoured that I think was valuable to my clientele, I share. You'll find 300 books there and growing. Like I said, I'm a continuous student. I write a quarterly privately circulated value creation article. If you want to subscribe to that free, just reach me through the website and we'll be happy to add you. I enjoy being a podcast guest, and you'll find me out there probably on YouTube sharing some things. So between my website and how you can reach me there, and LinkedIn, let's not forget, you showed that early. And there's you just showed the book I created coming out of grad school, Value Creation in Middle Market Private Equity. You graciously alluded to the one that will come out first quarter next year, entitled Profit Rainmaking, Loyal Customers, Exceptional Operations, and Inspired Teams. So I'm in pay forward mode. I call it my third trimester of life, and I'm paying back that thing to the mentors who made me for the benefit of other people. And I do that through consultancy, speaking, and writing, all the above.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight and your lived experience and your willingness to debate what has been a really interesting topic. I hope the people listening and watching have found it as interesting as I have. I look forward to our next conversation. And until next time, here on USA Global TV and Radio, take care.
In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations.
Get ready to wear the brand that's changing the world of media. Introducing the official USA Global TV and Radio online store. From our TV show hosts to our incredible global guests, you asked, we delivered. Rep your appearance with pride. Whether you've been on air, hosted a show, or tuned in, we have something just for you. Visit us at usaglobaltvradioshoп.myspreadshop.com and start shopping today. Check back frequently. We're dropping fresh new designs all the time. Showcase your role in our global community. These designs celebrate your voice, your story, your presence. It's more than just merchandise. It's a movement of hope, inspiration, education, and elevated listening. Head to usaglobaltvradioshoп.myspreadshop.com. Your spotlight awaits. USA Global TV and Radio. Elevate your style. Elevate the world.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram-Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram-Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
In a world that moves fast, there's strength in the woman who moves with grace. Introducing Bay London, where confidence meets craftsmanship. Each piece is intentionally designed for the woman who knows her worth, crafted from luxurious Italian eco-fabrics that feel as good as they look. With elegant coverage, effortless support, and timeless style, our swimwear celebrates both your body and your essence. Founded by fashion expert Carrie Sykes, Bay London is made for women who want to feel sexy, stylish, and seen. From poolside to beachside, sunrise to sunset, Bay London outfits you for every moment that matters. Because beauty isn't about age, it's how you wear your confidence. Bay London, confidence elegance, effortless luxury. Visit baylondon.com. Act now for your exclusive friends and family discount of $35. Scan the QR code. Bay London, where confidence meets craftsmanship. Proud sponsor of USA Global TV and Radio.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Steve Klein Art at steveklein.art.
My name is Steve Klein, born Manchester, England, 1953. My quest in my lifetime is to create artwork from my soul and the deepness within my wildest dreams and fantasies. In 2012, my heart stopped when I was given too much anesthetic for a minor knee operation, and this near-death experience took me to another multi-dimensional world, an out-of-body experience, and I was given the gift of being blessed by an overwhelming, burning passion to become, for the very first time in my life, an artist with an eternal, passionate desire to bring my art, which I've named multi-dimensional, subliminal, freeform art, to the world, as only 3% recover from what I experienced. And now in my golden years want to release my cosmic, vital energy through my art to allow people to be a part of my cosmic dance.
To learn more, email roccogoodwine@gmail.com. For VIP pricing, mention USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives, one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.